Hey everybody, this is PD from the Spinner Rack, and I'm doing another review of Lovecraft Country, Episode 6, Meet Me in Daegu. And I just wanted to have a little flashback um, to the first episode, the intro, which we introduced the sort of throw to John Carter, Warlord of Mars. That's what I want to say. So it was a sort of a throw to that, but it let us know that there's going to be some interesting things coming along, and that with this character would be Gia. She would be in this story. She did appear in I think episode 2, almost with like a Korean soldier attacking. So it kind of threw us off the track of what this character was going to be. We thought it was possibly a love interest, but at the same time, same time they didn't give us any information. So this episode is mainly about Jiha and her past and career, and his obviously takes a connection to her. Now this one is a very detailed episode, so this is going to be very hard for me to go through all the details of this episode, but I want to give a quick overview of just the key points that are in here, because basically it's in career. We see this character that's below, that's not high on the it's a lower class person. She is obviously studying to be a doctor or nurse. She's doing all this study, but she's not one of the top people in there. She's not with the people, well, not the connects. She struggles with dating. We see the dating life that's in Korea that's going on there. And the next thing you know, we see some hints. No, we see a hint of her character because there's a lot of supernatural in this story, and it reveals herself in a very graphic way. Like that she's this Gumido, like this character, this creature that's from this ancient folklore of Korea, and it's extremely graphic. It's in the scene where she has this casual sex moment with this character, since she's the person who's struggling to get a man. So of course she's gonna leave herself open, but it's actually this sort of blood sacrifice. So obviously it's very graphic, and obviously you see the money that didn't go into Baby Shack went into this character, but it's hard to look at. It's very hard to look at for me, not for all of you out there, but for me it was very hard to look at. So when you look at this, and then I was kind of saying how much weirder it's going to get, but ultimately this is some sort of ritual, something that they have to pay back. That you're going with her mother, and there's this issue with the mother and Jiha. They have this struggle, and they say the mother's with her doing the sacrifice. So there was some sort of deal that was meant that they have this number of souls that they have to get, and actually this character Jiha is not seen as the daughter's actual daughter. It's this creature that has all of this guilt and tragedy to her. So we're not key that she's just all bad, but she's taking out these negative people that are, just using women for, I don't know. She's picking out sort of the people that she's taking out, right? So obviously then Korea is thrust into war, and they are taking care of the soldiers there, and they're getting, I think there was some sort of insults that are going on in there to them. So it's obviously a hard situation. But there's one standout in the nurses group that are healing these prisoners of war, not prisoners, these casualties of war. And she's got all the men wrapped around her finger, but she has a connection with Jihad. She's connecting. This is the only person that's kind of showing her sort of any interest. So she's really connected her. And of course, they see someone being tortured who's a communist, and then this person who's the star pupil. So it says that, and that's where we meet the army. The army take them in there. There's communists there. They just start, shooting them in the head. And of course, the gun jams. It doesn't know, of course, I didn't know it was going to jam. But at the same time, I'm like, we're going to see Tick at some point. He shows up, and he doesn't. I'm like, okay, you're going to hand a gun and you're going to have this guilt. He starts shooting at the nurses. He kills them, shoots them in the head. And this is one of the things that I want to talk about with this series, because one of the things that they're also trying to do is throw you off the scent of what you think each character is. Whereas I said before about Ruby and her character sort of changing her because she was a very confident character that has this issue where she is okay with being a white woman for a little while, and she's kind of struggling with this serum. And now we've introduced Tick is not necessarily the character we knew. We find out that he hasn't really experienced love while he's been out here in the war or with anyone. But at the same time, we start to experience that this guy has his demons in him too. So we're like, oh, this kind of changes his character. But I would say this is very much like a novel where you can't just go to a standard archetype of what the character is, that Tig is a good guy. He always stands up for right. And this is the struggle that these two characters go. Because I struggle with the story because it's sort of here's the criminal or here's the injustice, and the story they would punish them, right? And there's been some weird stuff even with Montrose. Montrose that comes out in episode 5, but at the end of episode 4, he killed this person who just got her life back and helped, the team. So there's a lot of, I guess you could say, layers. Some of it is 180 from what we've seen of the characters, but we had to allow for that. In the war, some terrible things happen. A lot of times when they show the war, they still keep characters of different wars, like World War II, Korea, Vietnam. We would see Rambo as someone who did everything right and came home and found no love, instead of saying, what dark things did Rambo have to do while he was in the war? What dark things did like Charles Bronson in Death Wish, what did he do that wasn't savory? So ultimately, these characters are thrust together, and she is like, I have my next victim, but at the same time, they gain this connection through fantasy and kindness. And she decides to love this character and not sacrifice him, because it's going to be the last sacrifice to what this blood debt. But at the same time, she can't, obviously, they want this high drama. She can't control it. They talk about her going back to the US with him, but she can't control it. And instead of taking over she experiences all of his experience at the same time. She just connects with him using this weird sort of stuff. And she sees his past and future. And seeing his past and future, she sees something about him that she says for him not to leave Korea. And that's the thing we heard on the phone earlier. So this character we thought was going to be a negative, a draw. She's like, she has this history of him and she still loves him, but they kind of leave an awkward moment and point out that they're both monsters. They've both done terrible things. And this is an important part for the show because ultimately I didn't want it to be a basic revenge or sci-fi or sort of a Twilight Zone with revenge for social injustice, which I think some aspects of the new Twilight Zone had that. It's trying to deal with social injustice and punishing and using sci-fi to punish things. So I would say this is one of my favorite. Next to episode 4, this is my favorite. 4 would be a little below this, but yeah, they had introduced to Jiha. She's been a dazzling sort of character. Um, um, One that I think it would be interesting if we found out that Tick's real name was Atticus through her by that time, that they just called him Tick for all the time, Tick Freeman. And then I think it would have been more interested in that she sort of revealed that part of his full name. But that's just that's sort of the icing. So this one was very good. I'm looking forward to seeing what Anjanou Ellis will be doing. I've been talking about it in all my episodes since I've been a fan of her since when was it? She was in some girl movie. It was like a low budget independent film. and she's kind of been, a star. I mean, she's an undercover brother. She's in the Biggie movie, had a small part in the Biggie movie. I guess that's about it. But we got to meet Jiha, and hopefully we'll see more of her, and we'll give a nice romantic, well, weird romantic. Still weird. I'm still going with it's weird, and I'm leaving you with that. I'm sticking with it. Got a little better. Don't keep the plane level. Don't veer down. Tuneric out.